Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We're so excited to have you. As many of you realize, we were not able to have our June conference this year. So instead, we've been chunking up a lot of our content in net workshops and Friday forums. So please watch your email for remaining Friday forums and net workshops and join us for any and all. And thanks so very, very much. um, about this particular workshop. Throughout the pandemic, we heard from all of you that one of the biggest problems you had in trying to provide health and support services through the pandemic through telehealth was a lack of connectivity. A lot of you have old buildings, and a lot of you have even newer buildings that aren't fully connected. So we heard from Urban Pathways that they had actually figured out a way to jerry rig Wi-Fi in some of their older buildings at a not crazy cost. So we very much wanted them to share that with our community. So very kindly, June Clarke, who's the director of IT for Urban Pathways, agreed to join us and share her wisdom and knowledge with all of you to figure out how we can collectively juice up our connectivity in some of our older buildings. So just a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody should put their questions in the Q&A part of not the chat, but Q&A. And we'll get to those after June's presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce June Clarke of Urban Pathways. Thank you so much, June. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk to everybody in our line of work and to try to help as best as I can. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to share my screen. So, just a quick introduction about myself. My name is June Clarke. I am the director of IT over at Urban Pathways. And this is a new position at Urban Pathways that was created last year. So I joined the organization last year in July. So it's been like a little bit, just a year and a half now. It's been a great experience. So I've been in technology now for about 20 years in different aspects of technology, project management, infrastructure, applications. Primarily, I worked in finance, so some of the larger banks. And then after a while, I figured I wanted to get into the nonprofit world and kind of like share my expertise in that area. So this is my second nonprofit position. My first one, I worked for a social justice organization, which was a huge learning experience for myself. And then in my spare time, I volunteered a lot at shelters close to where I live. And I figured I would want to work in this space because it's something that I feel very strongly about. So this is my first experience in with dealing with helping the homeless population. And I must say it's been really fulfilling and I've been like really happy to be here. So Urban Pathways, Cynthia mentioned a lot of people know about us, but I figured I would just like do a quick introduction of the organization and the different programs that we run here. So we have street and outreach, then we have the supporting housing, and then we have our employment program. This is a listing of our locations that we have and the total number of clients that we service every day. So it's with the exception of Oliveri, which is we usually have a lot of clients going in and out of Oliveri on a daily basis. This is how our locations are spread. So we have a pretty good spread, and you can't see it on this map, but we do have a location in Queens and one in Brooklyn. And we actually just started doing outreach at the airport. So now we're at LaGuardia Airport and JFK, which is like really exciting. The last year when I came, our CEO, Fred Shack, started talking about Wi-Fi in our buildings. We have a mixture of older buildings, like Cynthia said, older and newer buildings. And he was of he thought that we had Wi-Fi in all of our locations. But during my site surveys, I discovered that we actually did not have Wi-Fi. Some buildings had no Wi-Fi at all. Most of the buildings just had Wi-Fi access in our admin space. So just our employees were able to really take advantage of accessing the internet from their phones and stuff like that. And then the clients would be able to use it when they came to that space. But when they went back to their apartments, there would be no access for them. So we knew it was always important for us to provide Wi-Fi access to our clients. But of course, like everybody else, when the pandemic hit, it really highlighted the fact that this was like a huge necessity. It wasn't just like a luxury item anymore. It became like a real necessity for them to, they were, they had to shelter in place. So they were kind of locked off from the real world. There was no interaction with their other friends in the building. It was just a really tough situation for them. So we really started talking seriously about what can we do? How can we bridge that gap and kind of help them? I mean, they rely on their cell phones for internet access. We're helping them at the time. Our employment programs, we're trying to help them find jobs. We're moving people into permanent housing. So searches are all done online now. Um, we were providing training, which all became online for them. Um, Even with our meetings at some of the locations, the clients informed us that they wanted to learn new computer skills and they want to be able to be more tech savvy. Some of them talked about social media. They wanted to be able to use social media. At one of our sites, I remember meeting a gentleman that was in college and he was like really upset that he couldn't use his laptop from his room to do his work and stuff like that. So it was clear that this was a huge need for our population and we had to address it. Um, for our staff, we were rolling out applications like building engines, which allows them to create work orders when they visit our apartments so that they can, if there's something is broken, they can get it repaired pretty quickly. And it became a challenge for them as well because they would have to go to the apartment, make notes, and then run down to their desk downstairs. And hopefully, they didn't get intercepted in between going up to down, and they were able to enter in those work orders so that we can fix them in a timely manner. Um, Same thing with case management, entering notes in the award system when they visit the clients, they go upstairs and they have to take their notes on paper and then go downstairs and enter it in. So it added an additional step for them in their job, and a lot of things were falling through the cracks, especially when we were doing reporting and stuff like that. So we knew that that would also help our staff if we were able to have Wi-Fi throughout all the sites. So we started really talking about it seriously, and we put a plan together. Um, some of our newer buildings, we do have all of the architectural drawings, so we started putting those together in one place. Other buildings, we do not have those drawings, so we actually, and I'll show you guys later, how we kind of like mocked up our own floor plans so that we can figure out like where the best placement was for the access points. Um, we worked closely with our Cisco partner and the engineers there They're very willing to work with nonprofits, and they really helped us in this process. So they helped us figure out the optimum placement for all of the access points, so we can get good coverage throughout the entire building. Um, we had to perform site surveys with wiring vendors. Urban Pathways has a three quote policy for any job that's over $5,000. So I was meeting with different wiring vendors. Each vendor has a different perspective on how to do things. What's the best way to run the cable from the top floor to the bottom floor? Newer buildings have chases that's in the middle that would made it easier to run that wiring. Older buildings, we had to run conduit pipes. So it really, it's really it's a time consuming process. But it really helped me get to learn the buildings. I pretty much know all of the buildings now, like the back of my hand, which was like a really good experience. Um, Urban Pathways, and I'm sure many of you guys also work with a managed services provider that does all of your IT support, that would configure your network equipment and all of your hardware and provide support to your end users. So we do have one, and we worked with them extensively on their price negotiations, making sure that they were getting the best pricing for us, that they understood what the project was, that they were also planning out on their end to be able to include and help us meet our deadlines. Um, so we had to work very closely with them. And then the big one that comes up all the time is money. Like, which site can afford to do this work? A lot of the work that we did it based on the budget availability of that site. Did they have money for spend down that we had to use before the end of June? So that was a big push on that end to be able to use that money. We felt like this was the priority for this year to use our spending on. Our wonderful development department, they ran campaigns on the digital divide that allow us to raise some money there. Also, we used some of our unrestricted funds to fund some of this. So there was different, we had to piece together a lot of different funding in order um, to accomplish this huge project. So this would be like one of the floor plans for one of our sites that did not have they did not have architectural drawings. So in walking the building, we kind of like drew up our own type of floor plans to be able to work with Cisco to figure out the placement. So the red stars are where we put the access points so we could get good coverage across that entire floor. This was one of the buildings, our largest building, and they had architectural drawings. So this was really easy to do because on the drawings it shows you where we can run the cables. It showed you where solid walls are and stuff like that. So they were able to help us place all you see all of the red stars on there are where we put the access points. So each floor, the first floor is different, then we have the second to the eighth floor, they're the same, and then the ninth and the 10th floor were the same. So depending on the floor, it depends on how many access points you would need to give you good coverage so that there's no weak spots on the floor. And then this is our Oliveri drop-in center. So for this one, we just decided we would just use pictures to help us with this because this is actually like our smallest site. It's really small. So we couldn't, and it's a weird shape. It's like a huge bowling alley. So we use pictures on this one to work with the engineers to figure out the placements of the access points at that location. Costs, the big thing on everybody's mind. So this is the lowest as you guys know, like we usually try to go with the lowest bid on any work that we would do. So this was for our largest site. This is 162nd Street. Um, there were 38 access points there at that location, and this is like what it cost us to run all of the wiring at that location. The thing with the 162nd Street is one of our newest buildings. So this was actually, even though it was the largest site, it was like probably the easiest site to wire up because of all the access points that were, all of the access doors that were in the building that it made it easier for them to run the cabling and feed from the 10th floor all the way to the basement, which is where we have our closet. Our IT closet is in the basement of this floor. And then this is what it cost us for our hardware. Um, so to purchase part of the Wi-Fi, you have to have an access point. So we have to purchase all the access points, and then they all plug into a power over Ethernet switch so that they get power at the access points. So there would be like a switch down in your IT closet, and all of these cabling that's run from all the different floors will eventually make it down to wherever your IT closet is, and it would plug in into that switch to power up, and your managed services provider would configure for internet access, et cetera, or any other accesses that you need. And this is for our smallest site. This was for our Olivieri site. So this was a really tiny site. So the wiring on this site was 20, just less, a little bit less than $3,000, which really wasn't that bad. This site has just 3 floors, as you can see. We put some access points in the basement because that's where the employees usually sit for lunch and stuff. So to give them uh, internet access while they're down there, like on their downtime. So this was a very easy site to do. And then this was what it cost us for the hardware at this location, which is just, so the entire thing ran just about $15,000. These are all of the sites that we did in our first round. So we still have quite a few sites to do, but as you can see, I broke it down by the number of access points that we had, what the wiring cost was, the hardware, the actual cost for the hardware to purchase the hardware, and then the last column was what our MSP provider um, charged for the labor to configure all of these devices. We did stuff like we blocked certain websites for our clients so that, to try in an attempt to keep them safe while they're on the internet browsing. Um, and all of this was from our spent down money. Some of the, we also used reserves that we had for some of the buildings. And as you can see, like if you look at Ivan Shapiro House and 162nd Street, even though Ivan Shapiro was a lot smaller than 162nd Street, it actually costs a little bit more on the wiring because of, it's an older building, and we actually had to run all uh, conduit to feed the wire through because of the structure of the building. So that's usually a little bit more intensive from a work perspective. Also, that's why that had cost like a little bit more. But all the others are pretty much in line. So hardware, there are choices for what what you would use from an infrastructure standpoint. So we went with Meraki. Meraki is under the Cisco umbrella. Cisco is like one of the leading networking providers around. There are some other options that can be considered. I've heard really good thing about Ruckus. HP has really good hardware as well. And Ubiquity is new to the market. It's very affordable, but it's very new. They've only been around a couple of years. So it depending on your budget, it might be a good solution, but just a way you just would have to weigh with other things like support, what kind of support they give, how does their hardware handle. So there would be like some investigations that would need to be done for that when you're choosing what hardware you want to go with. One of the great things about Meraki that I really like is that they give it's all cloud based, and they give you really good statistics. You can do a lot of the configuration, all of the configuration is done in the cloud, which is really awesome. And it makes it really easy. You can make changes on the fly. You can do this from anywhere. You can do a lot of monitoring with Meraki. It's a really, really good product. I've actually been using it for probably about 8 years now, so I'm very familiar with it. But as you can see, like it's almost like our clients were they needed this so badly because the usage there is so high. Like we constantly have a lot of clients on there. I mean, they're using it as you can see on here. They're using it for entertainment. They're probably using some social media. You probably can see on here. They might be using email. So I think it's really, really good, and we have some really high usage too, which is pretty good. And you can even look at them like we can spy on them a little bit, and you can see like nobody sleeps. So like between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., they're all on the internet, and then during the day they're all sleeping, which I thought was pretty hilarious. Oops, sorry. So we went and we spoke to our clients to see like what their feedback was after we installed Wi-Fi. And we had some really good feedback. As you can see, RJ, who's living at 162nd, he's really been using it a lot. He's going to church, he's doing his classes. They're at 162nd. They're also doing, Nicole is our advocacy director, and she runs Thursday meetings every month. And he's like really active in that, trying to help others and make things better for his comrades in that he lives with. And then Mark Collins, who's our program director at the site, he had mentioned that they're all coming up to him and telling him, um, that they're so happy that they can now put their cell phones on Wi-Fi, and it's extending their minutes, because initially they would run out of minutes early in the month and they wouldn't be able to use their cell phones after that. So I was like really happy to hear that it's like really making a difference for them. And I just wanted to show like a couple of pictures for you guys. So this is our 162nd Street building. This is what the closet looks like. You can see all the green lights there. That's the switch that's back there that's powering all the access points. All of these wires that are here, all the cables that will run to power up to feed to the access points. Um, the metal that you see going across there, that's the conduit. So that's like what you would have to use if you're doing it on a solid building. Like there are some floors at 162nd Street that's all concrete, so you can't really run anything into the wall, any wiring in the wall. So you would have to run all your wiring through the conduit. And this is what we had to use at Ivan Shapiro House as well, um, because that's an older building and we couldn't do any of the wiring in the walls there. And then that's what the access points look like, the white device with the antennas. And this is our Oliveri site. That's what our closet looks like. And that was the end of the presentation. I was just wondering if we can open up for questions.
Yeah, we do have, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, cool. So we do have a lot of questions, none of which I could answer. And
I'll do my best.
no problem. So one person asked what you mean by hardware exactly.
So the hardware would be like the actual access points that you would mount, which would be these. This would be considered hardware, the
Okay,
access point right there. And then if you look in the back here, like where you guys see like all the green lights, that's the switch that they all plug into. So that would be considered the hardware that you would need on the back end
great.
for to wire to power up all your devices.
Another question is about the ongoing cost of internet service, ongoing maintenance with Cisco,
Mhm.
and how you go about providing direct support to the clients regarding their internet service.
Yeah. So this is running off of our internet. So it's the same internet that we're providing for our staff. This is all connected into the same internet. So there's no additional cost. We're paying the same. I didn't even upgrade any of the circuits that we have because I think it's been working really well. One of the good things with the Meraki devices is that you can separate your traffic. So you can have, right now I have it separated where I have internal traffic just for employees. And actually I have, we're giving employees more bandwidth than we're giving to the clients. But as you can see, they're still using it, even though they're getting less bandwidth assigned to them. But it's the same internet that we use at 162nd Street. We're using, I think it's Optimum at 162nd Street. So it's the same circuit. As far as the support costs for the devices, so sometimes when you purchase, it's all part of your negotiations with Cisco. So right now we were able to secure 7 years worth of support with the pricing that we paid. So our equipment would be covered for 7 years, which is a pretty long time.
Uh, Another question is what's the name of the wiring vendor you use? And are they willing to help small businesses like buildings with 6 floors with 12 apartments on each floor?
I'm sure there would be. The vendor that I've been using is called Toasty. And it was the first time I had worked with them, but they actually were really, I was a little nervous at first, but they turned out to be a really solid company to work with.
Cool. Um, Another question is if you standardize the hardware, AP switches across the agency?
Yes, everything, they're all the same devices. And even going forward, there was a lot of mismatch stuff. We will be standardizing going forward.
Okay. Did one vendor wire all the buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
So you
Um,
have more leverage when you're working with one person. I think it's easier to like really negotiate because they realize that they're gonna get more business from you. So it's easier. They're more willing to give you a better price.
Great. And the question is who's providing your internet services and what do they cost?
So at 162nd Street, it's Optimum. Every site is different because of all the different vendors. They have their monopolies happening. So at some sites we have Spectrum, at some we have Verizon. It really depends. But I don't think we pay more than $300 a month for internet. I don't think so.
Okay.
Except our main location where we have fiber going into that site, and that's the most expensive location that we pay for internet.
Another question is, do all hardware providers provide the engineering consulting to place the devices for free, or do you need an outside consultant to assist?
Cisco is they do it for free, and I believe HP also does it for free. I'm not sure about the other two. I haven't worked with them closely, but I know HP would do it for free, and Cisco does it for free.
Okay. Um, So there was a question about how folks, nonprofits can use their budgets to support ongoing costs associated with security licenses.
Um, can they expand? Maybe that person can, when they, I'm not sure what they mean by security licenses.
Me neither.
Yeah. Can they ask it? Maybe they can ask it a different way. Who asked that question?
Yeah, Daniel, if you could expand on that, that'd be great. Um, Another question is, how much bandwidth do you allocate to clients? This is usually the problem since clients share a connection with staff.
Yeah, we allocated 40% of our bandwidth to them, and then staff has 60%.
Okay. Um, and then one very specific question, are you, here, I'm gonna ask all of Anthony's questions. Are the doors metal? What is the signal quality? What model of Meraki access points did you go with?
Um, the doors are, I'm not sure if the doors to the apartments he's asking, right?
I guess.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they're metal or not. That I'm not sure about. I can follow up and ask them and get back to him on that. Let me just take a quick note.
Okay.
We I don't have off the top of my head which model, but I can find out that for him as well.
Okay. Um, are your new buildings being designed with Wi-Fi access points moving forward?
There will be, as long as I'm here, there will be.
That's good. Um, let's see if I'm missing something. Oh yeah, do your buildings have security cameras? And if so, is there links to your internet system?
Yes, so we do have security cameras in our buildings, and we have just last year we started replacing a lot of our DVRs and putting our DVRs on the internet so that our staff can access those cameras when they're off site. Um, Eventually, we would like to kind of like centralize all of our security monitoring. So that would be like a project that we'll take on in the future so that we can view everything from a central location.
Okay, we have a couple questions on bandwidth. How much bandwidth do you have? And what is your user cap and what security firewall you use for clients' Wi-Fi?
Yeah. So right now, all the switches are full sitting behind our. We use sonic walls for our firewalls. I actually have a project underway right now where we're actually going to replace those sonic walls with new Meraki devices. To kind of, it's along the lines of standardizing our hardware. Um, Bandwidth really depends on the location. So I mean, now you can get like cable connections are so cheap, so you can get like a 150 um, down, 100 up, or 150 over 150 um, from Spectrum or Fios or whatever. So I mean, it's really affordable now, and maybe you would pay like $200 or $300. So
Cool. Um, the let's see. There's a question about let's see. Yeah. Do you, to be more secure on the wireless APs, do you need the APs to be covered with metal cages to avoid damages?
um, I don't I don't think so. At one of our buildings, we had more issues with wiring being cut than the actual access point. So, which is why we're using the metal conduit to run all of the cables through, so that they can't be cut. But I don't think we have not had an issue with damage to the AP.
Okay. Um, do you or your team assist the residents with Wi-Fi setup, or do you only support the back end?
I only support the back end. The case managers help them if they need help. But the way that I configured these, the access for the clients is that they actually, there's really no help that they would need. So you would walk into the building and you would see urban guest broadcasting on your phone or any wireless device that you have. And you simply just join to that device. And I did not put a password on it. It's pretty open. Um, the only thing that I am doing is blocking like certain sites to keep them safe and to keep them out of trouble. But other than that, they just connect to it and off they go on the internet.
Another question is, do you block streaming?
I do not.
Okay.
Only certain kinds of streaming is blocked.
Okay, I think I know what you're referring to there. Um, uh, do you have issues with people from outside of your building using the Wi-Fi?
Um, no, even if they did, I don't think it really would not matter because the main thing is that we have our internal network secure. Um, so it wouldn't matter if they were.
Okay. Somebody wants to know how to spell toasty.
Toste.
That would not have guessed that.
I mean,
uh,
if they wanted, if Cynthia, if they would like me to share the contact information, I mean, I would be willing to. I would just talk to them first, just to make sure that they're okay with me sharing their information and that they get ready for a flood of calls.
okay. Um, uh, are the Meraki license costs included in the cost that you showed?
Yes.
Okay. Um, I think if I'm, one question is, what are you planning to do after your 7 years is up with Meraki?
We would renew the licensing.
Okay. And do you have an idea of how you're going to pay for that?
Um, I'm 7 years is a long time.
Good for you.
This is a
Um,
long time, so I feel like as this technology evolves, like it gets less and less expensive all the time. Because I remember when I first started deploying Meraki devices, they were really super expensive, like really, really expensive. And even 7 years into using them, the prices are dramatically lower. So I can only see it getting less expensive going forward, which is
mhm.
why it's really good to lock in for a longer term because then you don't really have to worry about it for a while. And the one thing I could tell you about Meraki is like their support is like second to none. Like I've been working with them a really long time and they give like phenomenal support. And sometimes you need it. And when you do need support, like you need them to respond like really quickly.
Uh, One question is, did most clients already have devices or do you have computers available for use?
So that's another project that we're actually working on right now, where a wonderful development team secured a grant for us. And we're actually going to be rolling out some wireless desktops at our locations for clients. We're doing socially distanced computers so that they can use. We will also be piloting loaner tablets where the tablets will stay in the offices and then case managers will loan them out to clients if they have a telehealth interview or any type of anything that would need privacy.
Okay. There's several questions about licensing, advanced or enterprise licensing.
Yeah, advance is very expensive. So even that is still, I mean, even though it's less expensive than it used to be, it's still pretty expensive. So we usually just go with the enterprise.
Okay, there you go. What circuit speed do you have?
Yeah, it really depends on the location. At 162nd Street, I think it's 150 megs up over 150 megs down.
Okay. Um, what are you finding that you need to provide clients with training?
No, it's so simple. Like I mean, they're basically a lot of them were already using their phones already. They just were capped at minutes and data plans because of the cost involved. So once they connect to our urban guest SSID at the location, then there's really nothing else they have to do. They're just on the internet. And once they connect once and they step into the building, they'll automatically reconnect. So um, there's really no training on their end. And I just want to say, like, they're more savvy than we give them credit for. Like so
Cool. Very probably. How long did it take to wire like 162nd Street
they
and set it up?
actually did it over a weekend, believe it or not.
Wow.
The guys worked really long hours. I think they worked from like 7 till 9 or something like that. Both
How long
days.
did the entire process, though, of sussing out the needs and pricing out, finding the right quotes, how long was the entire process?
So I had actually started the process last year. So I had done a lot of the legwork last year, and then when the pandemic hit, it made it pretty easy because everything was uh, mostly completed already. So it was just a matter of us getting the vendors on site, scheduling that to do the tours of the building, walk the buildings with us. That's the most time consuming part. I know everybody has different policies and procedures, but for me, that took a really long time because of the three vendor minimum we had to do. So that's what really took the most time.
How big is your support team?
Um, so I'm the support team, and then we have our managed services provider. They, I'm not sure how big their staff is, maybe 14 people or 17 people, something like that. Um, so, um, so they're pretty much the IT department for us.
Okay. Um, are you feeling like that you would do anything differently going forward?
Um, sure. Uh, as far as choosing different vendors or choosing different hardware or like different. The only thing I would do different is that I'm always pushing to be more proactive because sometimes when you're working under the gun it gets really stressful, so I prefer to be more proactive and kind of like address any other projects ahead of time instead of waiting for a disaster to happen to kind of like get it done under the gun.
Um, do your sites talk to each other? And if so, can you explain?
Um, from a network perspective or
Yeah, WAN.
oh WAN. Okay, yes. Yes, they do. They do talk to each other. From a Wi-Fi perspective, all of our sites show up under our Meraki dashboard so we can see all of the locations that we already have Wi-Fi installed in and run the same kind of reports like this one for all of them. So if you look on the right side, you'll see where it says network, and then I could click on that arrow there, and then all of my sites would drop down there. From a data perspective, the way it works is that our central office holds all of our servers, and then each of our sites connect into the central office to access our data. So that's Hopefully that answers the question.
What is the fee that goes to Cisco for support, and were other providers considered?
So the fee is built into the pricing that I have here. So everything that's in the Wi-Fi hardware, that includes the actual hardware as well as the warranty or support contracts to support that hardware. Um, there are other vendors out there, but usually technology professionals, I think once you build a relationship with a vendor, you tend to always stick to that vendor. And I've had a really long working relationship with Cisco. So that was kind of like the reason why I went with them. It's more familiarity and knowing the kind of support that we would get when we, if and when we need it.
Okay. Uh, Folks would like to know if there's any funding specifically for Wi-Fi that you would be willing to share with the group.
I don't have anything specific. I can reach out to our development team, but I mean, we went after a number of grants, and I can ask our development who, if they remember who, um, some of the grants that we had applied to, but I know there is I'm sure there's grant funding out there. I don't know how the funders really choose who their fund or anything like that. So I can't answer that from that perspective. But we tried with a lot of grants, and I could get a list from development.
Everybody would really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also, we're wondering if you would be willing to share your contact information with
Oh, sure.
the all of the people that have been on this.
Would you send an email after?
We will send an email
Okay.
after, and we
Okay.
will include your. Um, uh, I think. Do you have backup connections for your cable modem?
We do not. So that's something that is on my plan right now. One of the solutions I have been exploring is something called a SD-WAN solution, software defined wide area network solution. And what that'll allow us to do is to, there's in the past, you would have to have two connections at each side, but now you can actually um, use cellular as backup solution and kind of like pool all of your sites together and use one backup to kind of cover all of your sites, and then it's all supported by software configuration, so that if a site goes down, your entire network or wide area network sees, well, okay, 162nd Street went down, so we're gonna route that traffic from 162nd Street over a different connection. It is something that that is really important, and it will be on my projects at some point, but currently we do not have it.
Okay. Another question is, how has it actually been working? Are there any issues with resident connectivity in their apartments? And if so, how's that been remediated?
We have not had. We do have one issue that was just brought to my attention was at Hughes, where they are having some issues, but we just were notified of it last Friday, so I actually haven't even worked on it as yet.
Okay. Um, I think, I'm not sure. Am I getting any other questions? Somebody asked what your highest occupancy rate, tenant occupancy rate, but I would imagine that that's 162nd Street and
It is.
86 tenants.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Let me see if I've missed anybody. Um, okay. Do I have any additional questions? The connectivity, has it been enough to do telehealth?
Yes.
Excellent. Um, so what, I'm not seeing too many more questions in the chat or in the Q&A. Oh, are you changing your password periodically?
We are the only place there's a password is on the employees. And since we just rolled it out, we really haven't even discussed like changing it. But we should definitely, it'll be done. I'm thinking maybe every 6 months.
Okay. Um, I think we have answered. Oh, are you using a Meraki switch as well?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You have to have it's called a power over Ethernet so that you can power the access points off of the switch. So you have to.
Okay. Um, okay.
And it's
And
included in the pricing that's listed.
oh yeah, can client devices communicate with each other?
No.
There you go. So I had a last question for you. What if what is your best advice for organizations that want to get this process started?
I think I know it's hard to say, Cynthia, because I don't know how everybody is set up. I know we spoke and you said not everybody has on staff IT support. I think it depends. So if that organization does have a service provider that does their IT support, maybe start discussing it with them, and see what guidance they have or what they can suggest, and how they can help. I know every service provider works differently, so I don't know if everybody's. I don't know. It's hard to say without knowing like what everybody's makeup is from a staff perspective in technology, or how
Okay.
they get their support.
Okay. Um, and one question is, can clients have access to printing?
Um, we're gonna set up printing for the desktops that we're rolling out. I think we might do printing for that, but not from their personal devices.
Okay. And you're going to talk to Meraki and let them know, or Cisco and let them know that you might share their contact information.
Well, do they need Cisco contact information? I thought it was the wiring
Mm,
vendor's
I think
contact
it's
information.
Meraki. That's what I've seen.
Oh, it's Meraki's.
Um, I'm seeing a Meraki question. Anyway, if you can
Okay.
share your various and sundry
Okay.
vendors, that would be great.
Okay.
Um, and Toasty.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was Toasty.
Yeah.
So the thing with Meraki is that they have um they have account exec assigned to certain areas. So it really depends on where your facility is located. That you would have a different rep. I mean, I can share my rep's information with you guys, but um, it may not be the same person that you would work with. She may have to find out or try to help find out who is assigned to your location or where your offices your buildings are located. So it would be a little bit different, just so everybody understands.
Cool. I think you've answered a lot of questions, and we are very, very grateful to you for sharing all of this knowledge with our larger community. But we will be sharing this recording and your wonderful slides with everybody, and as well as your contact information. And thanks, everybody. Thanks so much, June, for joining
Yes,
us and doing all this
thank
work.
you. I hope it was beneficial to everyone and they got something out of it. And I'm more than willing to help. Um, because I actually, a little bit selfishly, I actually enjoy doing projects like these.
It doesn't sound selfish at all to me, actually. All right. Well, thank you so much, June, and
All right,
thank you,
thank you.
everybody, for
Thanks,
joining us. We
everyone.
really
Enjoy the
appreciate
rest
it.
of the day.
Okay, you too. All right. Bye.